the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can.
Jimmy Kimmel has officially been suspended. The late-night host is off the air after comments he made that shocked some, entertained others, and left America arguing about free speech. Was this corporate censorship or accountability? Let's break down exactly what happened. Hey everyone! Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into the drama surrounding Jimmy Kimmel and his show Jimmy Kimmel Live, which was suddenly suspended after a controversial monologue. This story is trending everywhere: Twitter, YouTube, and news outlets across the US. So let's look at what Kimmel actually said, why it got him into trouble, and what it means for free speech in America. The monologue that started it all. So, here's the spark. Jimmy Kimmel delivered a monologue during his usual opening segment, the part of the show where he mixes news with comedy. That night, he turned his attention toward conservative commentator Charlie Kirk, a frequent target of late-night satire. At first, it seemed like typical Kimmel humor: sarcastic jabs, playful exaggerations, the kind of roast-style jokes we've seen from him for years. But then came the line that changed everything. Instead of just poking fun, critics say Kimmel implied that Kirk deserved what had recently happened to him, referencing the assassination attempt that had shocked political circles just days earlier. Even though Kimmel tried to frame it as comedy, many viewers thought it crossed the line into endorsing violence. Fans of Kimmel laughed and defended him, saying this was no different from what comedians like Jon Stewart, Stephen Colbert, or even Bill Maher have done for decades, using satire to punch up at powerful figures. But opponents argued this wasn't just satire anymore. It was irresponsible, dangerous, and could encourage real-world harm. That one punchline, delivered in less than 10 seconds, triggered a national firestorm. The suspension. Within hours of that broadcast, ABC released a carefully worded statement. Jimmy Kimmel Live would be temporarily suspended pending review. To the average viewer, that sounded vague, but in TV language, it's crystal clear. It means advertisers started calling. It means sponsors were nervous. And when sponsors panic, networks take action. This kind of response isn't unheard of, but it is rare. Late-night comedy has always walked the tightrope between edgy and offensive. David Letterman once came under heavy fire for controversial jokes about Sarah Palin's family. Jimmy Fallon had to publicly apologize after an old sketch of him in blackface resurfaced. Even Bill Maher lost his ABC show Politically Incorrect after making a comment deemed unpatriotic in the months following 9/11. But suspending an entire show, pulling it off air completely, is a drastic step. Networks usually prefer to issue an apology, distance themselves slightly, and move on. By halting Kimmel's program, ABC signaled just how serious they considered the backlash, and how worried they were about the financial and political fallout. Reactions across America. The internet exploded. Overnight, Jimmy Kimmel went from trending for comedy to trending for controversy. Supporters flooded Twitter and TikTok with defenses, saying this was yet another case of cancel culture, where comedians can't tell a joke without being punished. They argued that free speech is meaningless if comedians aren't allowed to satirize public figures. Hashtags like StandWithKimmel and comedy is not a crime spread quickly. But critics were just as loud. Many said this wasn't about cancel culture at all, but about accountability. If a late-night host seems to joke about or minimize political violence, critics argued, then suspension is the least of what should happen. They pointed out that if a conservative host had made a similar joke about a liberal figure, there would have been immediate outrage too. The opposing hashtag FireKimmel began trending with calls for ABC to permanently cancel the show. Political commentators from both sides joined in. Some conservative voices celebrated Kimmel's suspension, calling it long overdue. Meanwhile, certain liberal commentators admitted the line was poorly timed, but argued that suspension was an overreaction. For days, the debate dominated social media, late-night rival monologues, and even morning talk shows. In short, Jimmy Kimmel became the story instead of the storyteller. Free speech or consequences? And here's the heart of the debate. Was this an attack on free speech, or was it simply the natural consequence of going too far? Supporters of Kimmel leaned heavily on the free speech argument, saying comedy is supposed to be edgy, even offensive at times. They argue that satire has always played a role in exposing hypocrisy, and limiting what comedians can say sets a dangerous precedent. On the other hand, critics point out that the First Amendment protects citizens from government punishment, not from corporate decisions. ABC, as a private company, has the right to protect its brand and its advertisers. They argue that free speech doesn't mean freedom from consequences, especially when a joke crosses into the territory of suggesting violence. But for millions of viewers, the issue feels bigger than this single controversy. There's a growing fear that comedy itself is being suffocated, that late-night TV has become too sanitized, too politically correct, and that the risk of offending someone now outweighs the creative freedom to push boundaries. It's a debate that extends far beyond Jimmy Kimmel, touching on Dave Chappelle, Joe Rogan, and countless other figures who've faced similar accusations. Looking ahead. So what happens next? Right now, ABC says the suspension is temporary, but every day that passes makes this feel less like a cooling-off period and more like a trial run to see how the public reacts without Kimmel on the air. Behind the scenes, advertisers are likely the real decision-makers here. If big sponsors are comfortable, Kimmel could be back after an on-air apology. If not, this could drag on for weeks, or even spell the end of Jimmy Kimmel Live altogether. Some Hollywood insiders predict Kimmel will issue a carefully crafted apology, return to the desk, and address the controversy head-on with humor. Others believe this suspension has permanently tarnished his brand, making it harder for ABC to keep him as their late-night face. Either way, the outcome will say a lot about the future of comedy in America. Whether networks are willing to defend edgy humor, or whether comedians are now expected to play it safe. So, what do you think? Was Jimmy Kimmel unfairly censored, or did ABC make the right call by suspending him? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I really want to know what side you're on. And if you found this breakdown helpful, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next big celebrity controversy we cover. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.